The United Auto Workers Union has reached a deal with General Motors. The deal cuts labor costs and changes the way the VIVA is funded. It is a big step forward for General Motors. The company is trying to meet a June 1st restructuring deadline. GM still needs bondholders to forgive $27 billion in unsecured debt in exchange for an equity stake in GM.
And joining us live from Washington with his reaction to this tentative deal between the union and GM, Michigan Congressman Thaddeus McCotter.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Now, do you consider this a major boost in GM's restructuring plan? You know they're coming down to the wire on this June 1st deadline.
Yes, Caroline, I think you're absolutely right. It is a major step forward. It unfortunately is not dispositive as to the potential for bankruptcy. But again, we see the UAW and we see a car company coming together to try to do the right thing, to prevent a bankruptcy and keep these companies viable. We continue to see the enormous sacrifices the workers and the retirees are prepared to make to keep these companies going, and I think that they should be commended for that.
Now, Congressman, obviously they are making sacrifices. Now, what do you think the car company is going to give up on this deal? I'd heard that the one thing the union was really pushing for is fewer imports. Any clues on what they're going to get out of this?
The exact details of the tentative agreement are going to be presented to the workers and to the retirees, the people who are most affected by it. I think that's appropriate. I think it's just. But I think a lot of us in Michigan and throughout America have a very large problem with taxpayer money from these very workers being used to help outsource their jobs. If you think about the United States presently, what type of country would we be in terms of our economy and national security if Communist China is now importing our cars to the United States rather than having them made here?
Congressman McCotter, what do you think is going to happen with the bondholders with $27 billion on the line? What will help move them forward so this deal can get done?
I would hope, Carolyn, the thing that moves the bondholders forward is quite simply the sacrifice that the people who work for the car companies, the retirees, are making to keep them viable, to keep them an integral part of America's economy and obviously our Michigan way of life. If you look at the example of these people from humble means who've worked their whole lives or are working their lives just to carve out a piece of the American dream for themselves, I would hope these institutional investors understand that that type of sacrifice should be emulated rather than opposed.
Now, Bill Ford said something yesterday. I was interested in your reaction to it. He basically said, we don't want to take any public money. He says, we don't think public money is best spent on a private company, yet, of course, billions are right now.
Well, I think what the Ford Motor Company has done in their restructuring is to be commended. They've made difficult decisions, and they know that they are racing against the recession, that we have to move cars off the lots. I also like to use the Ford Motor Company as an example, that there are companies, domestic auto companies, that are trying to make it through these difficult times that have not asked for assistance out of need, and that other companies, even the transplants, have asked their own countries for bailouts. The reality is this: Ford is slightly ahead of the curve, but they also support GM and they also support Chrysler. They are all in this together and they well understand it.
All right. Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, that's going to have to do it for us. We do appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Thank you, sir.